Welcome, everybody, and just want to remind you that this session, as we try to do, is we record it. So it will be available from the Diocesan YouTube channel after this day, today or tomorrow, and you'll get that in the follow-up email. If you, during our question and answer session, if you want to unmute yourself or raise your hand, let us know you want to speak and unmute yourself, that's great. If you prefer to send your question via chat, either Esmeralda or I can read that for you. So we're here today to celebrate 50 years of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. And I believe the actual anniversary, nationwide anniversary celebration is in April. But today we're getting a jump on it so that you'll all be ready for that big day, or sorry, in May, not April. We're in April. Today's April 1st. Getting a jump on it. And CCHD, for anyone who's not very familiar, is the anti-poverty program of the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops. And it was one of those acronyms I had to learn when I got to the diocese and started volunteering there. I wasn't as familiar with it. And one of the most, I think, most important aspects of CCHD, something that really sets it apart, is that they are committed to working with the people who are directly impacted by poverty. They want to help people organize and develop their own programs, have a say in express what they need and find the solutions for what they need themselves. So I think they do a lot of great work. And we have several different presenters today, and we are going to kick it off with Dan Ebner. And Dan is currently Director of Parish Planning for the Diocese of Davenport, but at one time he was the Director of Social Action. And so we thought that he could speak a little bit about the history of it and our connection with it, and specifically Monsignor Marvin Moddett's connection. So Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Amy. And thanks, everybody, for being on this call. I wish we were in person so we could actually, just be with each other because I'm seeing such great friends out there. And I miss you guys because of COVID, right? I mean, I really wish we were all in one place. So, and thanks, Amy, for putting this together. So it's hard to talk about CCHD without basically telling the story of Father Moddett, because when Father Marv Moddett was asked by Bishop O'Keefe in the mid to late 1960s to be Director of Catholic Charities, and that was the original ask, Father Moddett had a condition for the bishop, okay? And so the bishop was ready to send Father Moddett off to the University of Iowa to get his master's in social work and run Catholic Charities. And Marv's condition was that he wanted to take a different approach to Catholic Charities. He wanted to have a focus on addressing poverty and addressing the causes of poverty. Now, the 1960s were a time of Martin Luther King's Poor People's Campaign. Of course, we brought Martin Luther King to the Quad Cities during that time. Marv was a part of all that. There were the marches on Washington were going on. There was lots of legislation to try to break the cycle of poverty. And a lot of that language that we see still on the Catholic Campaign for Human Development website really emerges out of those times, right? Where people were talking about breaking the cycle of poverty, which is still, what CCHD talks about. And the 1971 Synod of Bishops was convening around that same time as CCHD was forming. And one of the key lines in that Synod of Bishops said that action on behalf of justice is a constitutive dimension of preaching the gospel. So action on behalf of social justice is constitutive. So constitutive means essential. You can't do it without working for justice. You can't preach the gospel without working for justice, which brings us right to the mission statement that still is alive in CCHD today, where they say that their mission basically is to take on the mission of Jesus, which he proclaimed in Luke 4:18 when he reads from the scroll from Isaiah and talks about, that his mission is to bring good news to the poor, right? And liberty to the captives and set the oppressed free. So this is the mission of Jesus, and CCHD's mission is to share in that mission of Jesus. So all of this kind of comes together, and Father Madet he doesn't like abandon the need to provide direct services, right? He recognizes that it takes 2 feet to walk, right? So this whole 2 feet approach emerges out of Father Madet's thinking about the way he's going to do ministry, and he calls it social action instead of Catholic Charities. And the idea was, and I can still remember him telling me this in my first week as social action director. I came in 1986. But the way Father Madet taught me was, the direct charity, we're always going to do that. Yes, the poor will always be among us because that's our mission, to live and be among the poor, and we're going to always serve the poor. And so we have the St. Vincent Home Corporation, for example, to provide direct services or direct grants to people who were working on direct services. And we made that a part of the mission for every parish to have some charitable works, right? Direct services should be always a part of that. We turned over, by the way, Catholic Charities at the time that Father Madet was starting was primarily focused on adoption. And eventually we just turned over all of our adoption records and our referrals for adoption to an organization called Family Services. It's now called Family Resources in Davenport, right? And so it wasn't that we abandoned the direct services, but that he wanted the focus to be on the hard work of social justice. And so when he came up with this idea of having a newsletter, he called it Footsteps because it takes 2 feet to walk. You all know this, right? So Footsteps was the newsletter of the Social Action Department, and it was modeled along this idea of 2 feet of social action were charity and justice, and it takes both feet to walk. And he would say that, we tend to walk too heavily on the step of charity, and so we need to focus on justice. And that's really where the Catholic Campaign for Human Development comes in. And quite frankly, it's why Father Madet eventually leaves the Diocese of Davenport for several years to become the national director of CCHD. And during that time, he lives and works among the poor. He and a Jesuit priest, Father Dick McSorley, start a Catholic worker house in a very poor neighborhood on a corner of a street where prostitutes were frequenting the corner and where people were begging on the streets. And Father Madet chose to live and sleep on a mattress in this very tiny room in this Catholic worker house that he and Father McSorley started in Washington, D.C. So imagine this. I mean, he's basically the CEO of a multi-million-dollar operation, and he's sleeping on a mattress in a Catholic worker house in the poorest part of town. Okay, so, and that's basically what Father Madet does now for several years, is he's promoting this work of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, trying to break the circle of poverty. And quite frankly, one of the things that Father Madet did for CCHD when he was at the national office was he extended their mission not just to providing grants to organizations that were working for social justice and addressing the causes of poverty, but he added this whole other dimension of CCHD that still lives on today, and that's the education and outreach part of CCHD, which Father Madet saw was crucial to being able to get across this our mission of social justice. And so by the time I came on in 1986, CCHD had developed the Target program, and it was through the Target program really that I first started talking to Loxie Hopkins and Glenn Leach, because Loxie and Glenn were really the two people who helped us make the Target program work. Now, the Target program was a CCHD program that the idea was to target a certain number of Catholic parishes in your diocese that really wanted to focus on the work of CCHD. And so the idea was you take maybe 10 or 12 of, at that time it was, we had, closer to almost 100 parishes. So you take about 10% of your parishes and really focus the work of CCHD for a few years in those parishes and try to, live out the mission of CCHD and make it very visible. The other thing that Father Mott told me very early in my time as social action director was that he really wanted to get an organization that was getting national CCHD funding. So most of you know that we take up a CCHD collection, right, the Sunday or the weekend before Thanksgiving every year, and 1/4 of that money stays local to provide grants for organizations like United Neighbors was one of the organizations we supported regularly, Project Renewal, organizations that were addressing causes of poverty in the Davenport diocese. That 1/4 of that money would stay. But he wanted to get this national grant. And so my predecessor, Tom Massian, actually, who was a former priest, a layperson while he was social action director, he actually wrote the first grant for Quad Cities Interfaith to start. And QCI was just launching when I stepped into Davenport in 1986, and Father Mott immediately asked me to be on the board of QCI. It took about a year or two to realize that my role as CCI necessarily to be on the board, but to be an ally of QCI. And so we've had this alliance with QCI for very many years, and they've kind of gone in and out of getting national funding, but they've always been one of our focal points for local funding. It looks like as if, they're living out the mission that Pope Francis puts in front of us today, right? When you read the materials from CCHD's website, a lot of it reads like Pope Francis. It reads like, the joy of the gospel. It also reads of the economics pastoral, which was another significant step in CCHD's lifespan, where basically in the economics pastoral written in 1986, the bishops say that the ultimate test of or measure of an economy is not just what you produce, but whether that economy protects the dignity of the human person. Okay, the dignity of the human person. And so, this language is still there today, and it very much is alive with, the work that that Kent's continuing, and Loxie and Glenn, and really virtually everybody on this call is involved in some way. Amy is helping with it as well, but it fits very well into what Pope Francis is calling us to today, and really what Father Mott has called all of us to. So many of the people on this call have direct ties to Father Mott, and so I think about him every day. I still miss him all the time, but he was really the person who brought this whole mission to us, right? Of this 2 feet approach. And CCHD was always a critical part of that. I remember later when I asked Father Mott, about deepening our relationship with Catholic Charities USA, it was sort of like, like, what? You want to do what? You want to start Catholic Charities after, 30 years later, you want to do this? It took a while, it was a hard conversation at first, but he came around, especially with, because Catholic Charities now, we began to emphasize more of the work of CRS in our diocese. But Operation Rice Bowl of CRS is much the same as what CCHD does for domestic poverty. The Rice Bowl is doing for international poverty. And so, Father Mott eventually kind of came around to, this Catholic Charities and CRS. And actually what happened is CRS and Catholic Charities kind of came around really to Father Mott's way of thinking. They began to realize that it's not just about doing charity, but we have to always be doing justice. And so really when you look at CCHD, CRS, and CCHD, they really recognize this 2 feet approach of Father Mott, which has become really the national model for doing social action in the Catholic Church. And it's something all of us should be proud of, that, we share in the history and legacy of that movement. So I don't know. I could keep on talking, Amy, for hours and hours, but I think you wanted me to go about this amount of time. So let me pause right there.
All right. Thank you, Dan. And you're going to stick around for the open discussion and question and answers. So I'm sure.
Yeah, I have an eye appointment at 1 o'clock, so I have to leave in about 30 minutes.
All right, cool. So as Dan mentioned, one of the aspects with the Catholic Campaign for Human Development is this diocesan-wide collection that we take in November each year. And the funding, part of the funding goes to the national organization and part of the funding stays in the diocese. But even the part of the funding that goes to the national organization, a piece of that has consistently been coming back to the Diocese of Davenport through two of the CCHD funded organizations. And one of those organizations is the Center for Worker Justice in Iowa City. And we are very fortunate to have Mazahir Salih here with us today. She is the interim executive director for Center for Worker Justice. And she's going to speak to us a little bit about what they do and the impact that they make.
Sure, thank you very much. Really happy to be here. And also Dallas, here with me here also on the call, and he is CCHD intern for us, which is like very good help. I will share my screen for my PowerPoint slide. Yes. Hi, as she said, my name is Mazahir Saleh. I'm the interim director of the Center for Worker Justice. My background, I came from Sudan 20 years ago, and I came to Iowa 2000, exactly 2012 January, where I met with a lot of people who are passionate about social justice, and together we found the Center for Worker Justice back in 2012. 2012, people just came from different backgrounds and they just ride together and they call themselves Immigrant Voices Project. And at that time, just people want to figure out what the problem in the community and how can we organize around them. That was the first ideas. And even though people look completely different, but they have a lot of in commons. So those people from different, I remember it was 17 different countries when we gathered in one room and allies in this community. So, and we figure out there is, even though we look different, but there is many, many issues that we have in common. And you know that at that time, we don't have any way together. We just go and gather at the, local organization that they lend us their space, or we go to the public library. We don't have any area to keep our, documentation and everything. We put them in the trunk of the car, and that's how we're doing things. And also, we after we gather and we identify all the problems that the community face, and we said, okay, it is time to have a name for this group and an organization. So we come up with the Immigrant Voices Project is the founder of the Center for Worker Justice. What I want to mention during all these meetings, and we start like sitting together and talking about how can we establish the Center for Worker Justice itself, there was allies from CCHD. I remember, of course, Loxie, Hopkins, and Glenlish is the very first people I knew when we start this. Maybe there is some other people, but those people just stick on my mind because I remember them from the very first days. And together we found the Center for Worker Justice. It was a lot of support from all the allies in the community, but we don't have space. We don't have staff. We don't have anything. So here where CCHD help come when the first time we apply for the grant that CCHD offered, and we applied for it back in 2012 and get it on 2013, I think. And since then, I guess CCHD was the reason we were able to hire staff and created a safe place for immigrants and Iowa. And, you know, to educate them about their right, to educate them about, you know, all the good things that now you hear about the Center for Worker Justice. We're gonna go through like a few victories that we are able, they tell you about. But I'm gonna just give you one example before I can give you the real, you know, campaigns and everything that CCHD, you know, fund help us create it. I'm gonna be honest with you, when I came to this community, you know, the skill that I gained from the Center for my personal level, I came here and I learned a lot about my rights through through the Center for Worker Justice. I become knowledgeable enough even to run for a city council in 2017 and to become the first immigrant and in the Iowa City Council. Because the skill that I gained from the Center for Worker Justice, I learned about the issue and the tools to navigate those issues and come up with a solution. So that's all. Come back to, you know, everything without money, we cannot do anything. That's why the help and the support that we receive from CCHD. We're going to tell you a little bit about the victories. This will be between me and Dallas. We're going to talk about it. And how the, you know, the fund that CCHD provide for the Center for Worker Justice help us win many major victories since 2012. Dallas, do you want to go?
So one of the
Dallas, we cannot hear you. Dallas? Okay, maybe I will go for this until Dallas figure out what's happened. Okay, one of the first campaign that we have is a community ID, where people in this community just whenever they cannot identify themselves, they being taken to the jail and their fingerprints sent to the ICE, and you know, things will escalate. Family will be, you know, deported and separation of families and all this. That's why our members come up with this great idea. Identify the issue is escalating the problem because you cannot just simply identify yourself. So we will come up with this idea and we present with the help of University of Iowa, you know, College of Law, we would propose it together to Johnson County so we can create a community ID. And we started by a survey for all the people to make sure who cannot obtain a government ID. And it was for, like, interestingly, not only people who don't have the necessary documentation to obtain the MV ID, there is many other people who even born in this country, for one reason or the other, they cannot get a community, they cannot get a government ID. So we thought this is really needed. And we passed one of the first community ID in the Midwest back in 2016. And for years, you know, it's being now helping improve the, you know, the relationship between minority and the local enforcement on the area. And as you see here, where people went and gathered at Johnson County, and everybody was demanding this community ID, and we passed it. This is the community ID. Yes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now, Maza?
Yes, you can go ahead here.
Okay. Sorry about that. So another major campaign that the Center for Worker Justice did with the help from the funds provided by CCHD was we joined the Fight for 15 campaign that was across the country and worked to raise the minimum wage in Johnson County. Through all of our community organizing, we were actually able to end up raising Johnson County's minimum wage to $10.10. That would stand until the state of Iowa ended up revoking the county's individual ability to set their own minimum wages. But after that, we actually went to a number of the businesses in Iowa City and the surrounding areas to get a bunch of the businesses to actually make a pledge to uphold the Johnson County minimum wage of 1010 without, legal repercussions. I don't remember the exact number of businesses that we got to do that. But.
It is 165 businesses sign up voluntarily to commit paying 1010 for everyone, regardless what's happening in Des Moines. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the really cool campaign, even though it's not cool to steal people wages, but I just love this campaign because, I always do it. Recovering wage theft cases. Wage theft is just simply you go and work somewhere and they don't pay you for one reason or the other. So this is ongoing campaign at CWJ. People will come and say, I work somewhere and they did not get paid. Sometimes we even find out not only they did not get paid, but they pay less than the minimum wage. They get paid overtime, just at regular hours. They work more than 40 hours a week and they just get paid straight hours, no overtime. And sometimes we find out they been misclassified. They did like misclassification where you are hourly employee, but they classify you as independent contractors because this way the employer doesn't want to pay tax for the government. So all this kind of wage theft, it come to us and we will, start it simply. But after we gather all the information, I will pick up the phone to the employer and say, hey, you get to pay this person. We have all the documentation. Sometimes since we go good, but most of the time I have to put together a letter and send it to the employer and gather some delegation of elected official, face leaders and unions leader, and we go there during the busy time. Busy time of the employer. For example, if it's a restaurant, we go there at lunchtime where a lot of people there, so we can demand the employer to pay that person. Most of the time, things will de-escalate there, and because we would talk them about our next step will be a protest in front of the restaurant. So we give them 5 days to pay that employees. If they don't, we will gather our sign and go there and protest, and we contact the media and put a lot of pressure on the employer to pay that person. So most of our case has completed just there, but we end up filing 2 cases or 3 cases with the Department of Labor, and also we won them. We won 99.9% of our case that we went to against. We don't go to court, we just put community pressure on them. So far, we recovered 140,000 since we start CWJ, and 45,000, I guess, or 40,000 just on 2020. Could you imagine on 2020, with this all the crisis, some people, they did not get paid. They stole their wages. Here are some people, just that we, mixture of the people we recover wages for them. Yes. Does you wanna get a shot on this or you want me to say it?
Yeah, so the people of Forest View actually were they approached us, and it was a group of people that we worked with. They're a mobile home community out towards the interstate in town, and they were faced with quite the predicament where their entire trailer court was bought out, and they were being forcefully evicted by developers that were trying to seize the land and build other kinds of housing and hotels. In response to that, we actually were able to help them establish a tenant association that helped them raise the concerns of the residents to the developer and make sure that they were able to compromise with the developer to make sure that they were not being forcefully evicted out of nowhere when they didn't have anywhere else to go, let alone finding affordable housing to go to. Since then, they've continued to be fighting for their kind of survival at this point, but they, let me see, can we go to the next slide?
Yes.
We've been meeting with the developer to discuss options on how they were actually going to be put into new homes after the development was going to be taking place. So rather than being forced out into the streets and having nowhere to go, they were able to, have a solution at hand. However, the developer has still been slowly trying to, it seems to go about a war of attrition with the poor residents here. So they have been forced to go to the city council and talk with unions that we've helped them work with to actually go about finding ways to improve their park, as the landlord and the developer are essentially letting it just waste away and decay underneath their feet. For that reason, the tenant association was able to get a small army of volunteers and carpenters from the carpenters union to go out and help repair a bunch of the homes that had been damaged, and try to tear down some of the more condemned homes that have just been rotting away and create a safety hazard for the community and their families. During that, over the course of 3 repair weekends, they were able to repair 49 homes. And they actually were working with Habitat for Humanity to come and repair some of the more significant damages and unrepairable things by volunteers at a later date. So
yes, and now we are working to have a forum because we just start seeing the developer is slowing on this project. So we're going to have a forum soon, and you if you are in our emailing list, you we'll see that we're going to send out. We need the allies to come, so for this view can start talking about the story, so we can just escalate this a little bit, so the developer can do what they promised.
Yes.
Yeah, for immigration, we have an immigration committee, and the immigration committee are they do a lot really for immigrations. One of the things that we held a clinic for people to come and apply for citizenship, and this is being held with the University of Iowa College of Law. The legal clinic students will come here and do that. And also we created a response team to address ICE rabbit. If they hear something coming on, we have some kind of WhatsApp group, and we can alert people about ICE activity. And also we have some people, they go and visit people who has been detained. And not only that, they will ask and their family, and they check on them and see what they need, and also connect them with the bond project, where if they need to pay for the bond, we can do that. Yeah. And now with the new administration, we are very hopeful that we're going to go and continue advocating for immigration reform to, so they can fix the broken immigration system and, give everybody documentation. Yeah. Go ahead.
Aside from these really major campaigns that we've been doing, we also try to do a lot of smaller community outreach as well. Pre-COVID, and hopefully after it's all back to normal again, the Center for Worker Justice also offered sewing classes and English classes to immigrants in the community, and families that are just looking to make maybe a bit more income through some additional sewing work on the side. They also have summer activities for kids and after-school workshops and school tutoring for students that are, maybe need a little bit of extra attention after school. We also have put on Know Your Rights workshops, especially with the last administration being so critical of immigrants in the community. So wanted to make sure that they were aware of their rights for those too.
Yeah, and the last and the ongoing campaign that we are working on right now is From My Home to Yours. I love this campaign. This campaign we just created, with the crisis, with the coronavirus, basically, because we just figured out there's a lot of help from the government for the people who are really eligible for that help. But there is many families who are really hard workers are not eligible for this, government help. So they left during this coronavirus, they left really out and behind, they don't have any safety net. So we just start talking to the people and ask them to donate their stimulus check if they are not affected financially during this COVID. So the caring individuals of this community, they just start donating their stimulus check to us. And also we reach out to the county and to the city, and we ask them also to give us some fund for the people who are not eligible for government. And so far, we raised 3,600, of donation. Most of this donation is from individual, by the way, and caring member of the community. Out of this donation, maybe like, say, for example, 150 or so, is just from government and institution. But the rest of the donation just from people who are really just support and caring community members and like to just donate to the Center for Worker Justice. We pay between 400 to 600 to the family that they need to pay their rent, utilities, electricity, and I think so far we're really helping a lot. This 369 as of January 1st. Anything after that, we still did not add it here, and we're still receiving donations from individual members after they receive the 1,400 stimulus check. We still ongoing donation, and we're still helping people every day. They come here and apply for that assistance, and we've been helping them. This program is really show us how this community, how the community member really care about us people live on this community. And that's will conclude our reward. And I want to say thank you so much to CCHD. We could not do it without you.
Terrific. Thank you both so very much. Loxy, if it's okay, I'm going to see if anybody has questions specifically for Dan, since he needs to leave, if he's still here. He's not still here, is he? Oh, you are. Oh, hey, Dan. Okay. I'm sorry. My screen's all over the place. So if anybody has any questions for Dan, did you want to go ahead and ask those now before he has to head out? No? Okay. Well, then I think we'll go ahead and thank you, Dan. I wanted to say thank you before you go. Thanks so much for sharing with us. I always love hearing about Father Madet. He amazes me every time I learn something new. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I think about him almost every day, and we all miss him. And it's great to hear what the Worker Center for Justice is doing in Iowa City to carry on that legacy of Father Madet. It was great hearing that story.
I would agree. Thanks so much. Well, Loxy Hopkins has played a large role in Catholic Campaign for Human Development in the Diocese of Davenport. She has helped with coordinating the national grants, and she has helped to promote the campaign in November to try to bring in donations to support the national and the local grants. And she also has been very involved in the CCHD intern program. And Dallas is one example of that great work. So Loxy, did you want to tell us a little bit more about CCHD interns?
I do. I want to tell you first, Father Madet, when he was director of CCHD locally here up until about 12 years ago, I think it was. And Father Madet, if everyone that knows Father Madet doesn't say, will you consider doing this? Father Madet always said, here's what I want you to do next. And so he asked me if I would be director of CCHD for our diocese. I reminded him that this was an appointment by the bishop, that it wasn't just his decision. John Kiley was our director right now, and I said he might also want to have something to say about it. But the bishop and John Kiley both agreed and welcomed me into this position that I've been so proud to serve through these years. So right after I started, I found that there was a grant for, CCHD had a grant for internships. And so after looking into this, I thought, oh, this would be really a cool way to develop young leaders in our diocese with that CCHD internship. So we started applying, and we've had 11 interns. Every year our grant's been accepted. Our first intern was Mark Schmidt. And to show you what happens with these really quality young people that have been interns, Mark, until recently, was Director of Social Action for the Diocese of Dubuque. So it's been fun watching our interns grow through the years. CCHD pays them $14 an hour for their internship. The young interns must be Catholic. And that's about what all that they have to be. They do not have to be college students, but every intern that we've had have either been college students at St. Ambrose or Augustana or University of Iowa, to date anyhow. I think that we've had some of the most outstanding young people. CCHD generally takes them in May to Washington, D.C. and trains the interns. Unfortunately, with COVID last May, we had to be virtual training, and I expect this year is going to be the same thing with virtual training rather than the intern, whoever that's going to be. But I have one intern that I've basically been following for the whole time since she's been intern, because watching her grow in her personal life has been amazing. And her name is Rachel Dunlap. And so I asked Rachel if she would do a short video to let everyone know what she's been doing up until now. And so if we could show this video. No, we don't have sound.
If you hit share screen down at the bottom left, it's a part that says share sound and optimize for video clip. I'd click those.
Hi, my name is Rachel Dunlap, and I was the CCHD intern from 2015 to 2016, which was my senior year at St. Ambrose. Following that, I moved to Philadelphia to do a year-long volunteer program that was run by Franciscan Sisters, and I worked at a community center for immigrant families. So my primary roles were to coordinate service immersion trips for high school and college students. I taught ESL class, helped with food and clothing drives, helped with Know Your Rights trainings, just a lot of different community functions. And I actually stayed there for 2 years instead of 1, and lived in community with 2 other young women both years. And then following that, for the last 3 years, I have been attending Boston College, getting a dual master's with my Master's of Social Work and Master's of Theology and Ministry. I'm in my last semester and will be graduating in May. Currently, my social work internship is working on an inpatient psychiatric hospital unit, and it's primarily for bipolar and psychotic disorders. I have also did my internship last year working with young adults who are experiencing homelessness, and looking in the future maybe to do something in one of those areas. I am not sure if I will be moving back to the Midwest yet or not, or staying in Boston. Really open to different social work positions, working with the most vulnerable and marginalized. And finally, I just recently wrote my theology thesis on using bodily spiritual practices for trauma healing in the church. And so I am hoping to use that in some capacity in the future. So thank you.
I just want to say yay. I mean, Rachel is one of the most impressive young women, and a perfect example of the quality of the young people that have been interns with the CCHD program. I also want everyone to know Father Dennis Martin, who's been on the CCHD board for a zillion years and has offered great guidance in this diocese to CCHD. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Loxie. We can open it up for questions or comments if anybody has anything that they'd like to say about any aspect of Catholic Campaign for Human Development. Okay. Well, then I guess we are going to finish a few minutes early today. I want to thank everybody for being here with us today. Aaron, I want to tell you that I think you have the cutest partners, second only to Jim and Mary McHugh, of course, being together. So, but, oh, Kent, you had something you wanted to add?
Just one other plug. There'll be additional information as it relates to the 50th anniversary celebration of Catholic Campaign for Human Development nationally here in the next month or two. There'll be opportunities for people to participate in celebrations virtually. And if you're part of the group that is attending today, we'll try to make sure to send out notice about the annual celebration. There are many dioceses that have incredibly robust CCHD programs, the Archdiocese of Chicago being one of them. And though, having said that, the folks nationally recognize the contribution that our diocese has made, which it's a greater contribution than the size of our diocese would necessarily demonstrate. So we ask you for your support, and both to the collection, and we will share information as well once we identify who the intern for next year will be.
Yep. Okay. Well, be watching your email. There will be a follow-up with the link to the video, and we hope to see you all at another Lunch and Learn soon in the future. So have a great and a happy and blessed Easter weekend. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.